Okay. So you open up the menu API. So let's start with basic authentication, simplest one, right? So basic authentication is, you understand, every time you call the API, you need to send username and password, or encoded, encrypted, so that in your web services part, the other end can also decrypt, decode, and then verify. So let's assume that your basic user has username and password. So in order to verify the username and password exists, you need to have in the database a user table to actually store the username and password. So probably the first step is really to go to the database there in MySQL and create the table for users first. Then you can actually authenticate. So those who missed last week's lesson, there are two ways of creating tables in MySQL. First, you go to Workbench. First way is the easy way, which is to via the GUI. So let me just repeat some of the stuff that I mentioned last week ago about the GUI and what the options you see here. Okay, so imagine a table as an Excel worksheet, spreadsheet, and then everything is arranged in column and rows, as you know in Excel. So when you store create a user table, imagine you're creating a worksheet that stores users, and there are two columns you want to store, which is the username and the password. Now then, when you store username and password, you need to take note of a few key things. One thing is that username needs to be unique. Why must it be unique? Because you don't want the same person, two different persons to have the same username, and then they log in and you don't know who they are. So it's just like IC and email, a lot of systems, they ask it to be unique. So if it's been used before, the system will reject and tell you to enter a new one. So that's one of the precondition of a user table. Now for password, typically if you're lazy, you can just store the password as plain text in database, but that's not advisable. So normally what we do outside is that we will hash the password using MD5 and then store it. So what you're storing in database in terms of passwords is never a plain text password, but an already encrypted password. It's not a two-way encryption, it's a one-way encryption. So if you use MD5, it's a one-way encryption. Now then, how do you verify the password is a one-way? Very simple. Let's say I store 12345 as my password, encrypted into something else. And then I log in again. If I supply the correct password and I encrypt it the same way I encrypted the first time around and compare the encrypted value, if it's the same, then it matches. So this ensures that there's very little exposure of the actual password into the system and whoever looking at the database. Why do we do that? Is because a lot of people tend to reuse password in all the systems they use. They get the same password for their email, PIN, everything. So if you happen one day to be able to sneak and see someone's password, very likely the person uses the same password for his other email and other accounts. Okay, so for that reason, we always MD5 hash the password in database.
Java, there is a MD5 encryption.
Yes, there's a cryptography module for you to do a very easy MD5 hash. Where MD5 hashing can be very straightforward as just running through a function and returning a long string of characters which is hash ready. Now you can make it a bit more complicated by adding sorts to it, like adding characters before and after the password and then encrypting it. So this is why you're doing sorts is to really deter someone from finding the MD5 hash and trying to decrypt it. Now MD5, although it's one-way encryption, is not uncrackable. You can still uncrack an MD5 encryption, but it just takes time and computing power. So let's just create a user table. So the user table will be quite straightforward, and so here I'm going to run through some of the UI things in MySQL. So in MySQL, when you create a table, you can right click on the tables here, and there's an option called create table. Then you get this big form here that has quite a lot of options. But there are only a few key things you need to take note for at this stage. So leaving a lot of options here, the drop downs default, you don't need to change anything. You need to focus mainly on this area, which is the column. Okay, so in the GUI version, you type in, so you pick and choose, type in the column name and then choose the certain options for each column. So now, the thing about your worksheet, first column I will have is the username, which is unique. Okay, so maybe in the column name I call it username, which is also the login ID. So this is where the user will store login ID. Now, the moment you key in the first column, you notice that the left side has a yellow key icon. It's quite faint and small. So the key icon basically means this column that you create, the first column you ever create, is usually a primary key. The primary key simply means that this is a unique field column in the database that uniquely identifies every row in the table. Now the choice of the unique key or the primary key can more usually is an integer, which you click on the data type drop down, you get a lot of things here. So the first field on top more or less the common types that you use. So followed by the one below gets more and more obscure and really not the kind of things you use typically for most applications. Okay. So while creating a primary key, you have two options. Most tables you have an integer as a primary key, but that will mean that the username login shouldn't be something like a number. Okay, so you can choose something else. You can also choose a varchar, which means a variable character for a primary key. Now, a variable character gives you the round brackets, which is a purpose for you to enter the number of characters you want to store in this column. Most databases always want you to set the number of columns because they don't want you to waste space. That was in the past because storage was expensive. But still going forward, I think in terms of efficiency, always have in your mind what is the number of characters you want to store for username and login. Like for example, if you store postal code, you know that it's going to be 6 digits or 6 characters in Singapore, so you do that. And username, depending, you know. In this case, username can be a wildcard, can be email, but can be very long. Or sometimes you just use an alias. So maybe just generally, it's up to you. I give 100 characters here for username. So after keying 100 characters, then you tell MSQL that you need to allocate 100 characters for storing username in this column. The next few options here, PK, NN, UQ. If you don't know what it means, you can mouse over the top and it shows you the options. So here is pretty straightforward. You just tick and choose yes, no, what do I want. But so on, I need to tell you what is important and what does it mean. PK means primary key. So every table has always only one primary key, usually not many. Okay, I shouldn't have just one primary key. So among our columns, maybe take this as a primary key. So have that checked. Second, NN means not null. That means every value that goes in this column cannot be a null value. So in databases, unlike real world, when you say it's empty, right? In databases and in computing system IT, there are two types of empty string or null value. A null value is different from an empty string. So empty string means there's a string there, but it doesn't have any characters. But a null value simply means there's nothing there. So having said that this is not null means you cannot allow a null value to enter here. It must at minimum be an empty string. Okay, for username, of course, we should not allow null values, and even more should not allow empty string values. Okay, UQ, unique index. So when you come across UQ, unique, but sounds like primary key because it's also unique. Okay, if you enable UQ, what it happens is that there's one more keyword here that says index. Indexing is a particular method in databases to optimize your tables. Okay, what do I mean by index? When you look at a dictionary or any kind of a book, that's maybe hundreds of pages long. Okay, normally the author will split it out to chapters and verses and etc. What's the best way to look for a particular chapter? And go to the table index, the table contents. That's the index. So when you go to the table index, you know that this chapter talks about this. I just skip the page number. The database acts the same way with unique indexes or indexes in general. So indexes make the database table perform a little bit faster when you're looking for things. So when you have an indexing, especially on the primary key, it makes sense because you are going to be looking for a user by the username. So keep that checked. Now the next few columns will be a little bit less used. Is binary column, you will not use this unless you're going to upload a file into this column. So this column is going to store a file, then you might choose, it's going to store a two binary value, which is either 1 or 0, then you use a binary column. Otherwise, you usually don't. UN, unsigned data type, is only good for integers. So numbers unsigned means you don't have a plus or negative. Whatever number goes in is a whole number. ZF, zero field. Okay, zero field is useful when you key in postal code and you have some zeros in front, you pad it up. Okay, so let's say you put in 10 and then your character length is 6. So the database will pad zeros in front of that to make it 6 character long. Here,
Integer or for varchar?
varchar. Actually, it's integer also, numeric.
Use for numeric.
For numeric values. So they purposely put a 0 in front. Yeah, but we don't really use this ZF. 700 field. It's very specific that they want a 0 in front, you don't know it's a number. But it means that when they select, they will be able to return with a 0 padding in front, even though it's a numeric number. Okay, AI, not artificial intelligence, but auto increment. So auto increment is very important whenever you choose. Okay, so when you choose a column that is a primary key, you got PK, If you got PK enabled and it's an integer, data type must be a number, then you choose auto increment. So what it means that every time you enter a row, this column will automatically increment by 1, default 1. You can actually set the value somewhere else, but it will be through expression here. Now for this one, this version of the table we're doing, our column is not an integer, it's a variable character. So you cannot increment by 1, don't take this, it will not work. Okay. Then finally G generator column, sorry we don't use that also. And default expression is for you to key in certain functions, like for example returning a now, time, date, whenever you key in a column. So this one we don't use here. So that's good enough for username. Second column that we will need to store will be the password. So just click the second row below and then key in the name of the column, password. And password, of course, variable characters. Now, most of the time when you log in the system, they ask you for 6 character, 8 character, or etc. number of character passwords. So try not to be too long. If you follow the standard around 8 character password, right? Is it going to be primary key? Unique? No. There are chances that maybe 2% out of a million might use the same password in your database, but that's not important. Encryption will be done in the software side. So we will encrypt before we inject the DB. I think that's one way. Yes, we encrypt when it's stored, it must be encrypted. But whether we use a database function to do MD5 hash or we use application to do MD5 hash, you can choose. So I think we should be an MD5 hash for MySQL. Okay, password. So not a primary key, not now. Of course, you should not allow passwords that are now, right? And the rest of the columns here you can leave it empty. Okay, so there may be other columns you want to store, like when was this record created, things like that, right? So maybe I create that. So created date, and for date time, click on the drop down, you will notice that on top, integer, varchar, decimal, date time. So there is a date time value here, slot type. Primary key, no, not now, cannot be now, make sure it always has a value. Now default expression, okay, so this is an interesting function you can use. So you can choose to supply a created date time on your application. I mean in Java code, you give a date time when you insert this. Or you can tell SQL, I don't want to give you date time, you create date time. Now when you make a decision to ask the database to do it, please make sure the database is in the correct time zone as your application server. Or at least in the universal time zone. Okay. Otherwise it might create some issues next time when your database is physically in another time zone and then it's not synced up. So for now, I'll just leave it as I'll create for the application side. Okay, so 3 basic columns. Once you're done, go down to apply. So this is the easy looking way of doing it. So if you apply SQL, MySQL will generate the actual SQL script that will create this table. So you notice that it's a create statement, create table. The new API is the name of the database. Users is a table that I'm going to create, and then followed by individual columns. So notice that all the options I chosen before, they're coming out here. So username, varchar, not now. Okay, where's the primary key here? Primary key is a primary key username, which is a unique index, username unique, and in ascending order. And then password, here the options, created date time, created date, here the options. So if you're quite happy with this, you can just click apply. I'll tell you it's successfully executed. On the left side, you will have your users table. So you can expand it to see the columns or the index which has been created for the primary username. Okay, so now you have a user. Okay, close this tab. And if you want to insert data rows in the menu API users in the MySQL workbench, you can do that. If you right click on users and click on, let's see, select rows. So you try to select rows, it will also generate the select statement here, select star from a new API, which is a database name followed by a table name. Then below will be the result grid. So now that you've created a table, of course the table is empty, nothing inside. So you may want to enter some username and password if you want to. But if you're gonna hash the MD5 hash the password, then probably you want to wait a bit longer. Okay, later we'll do that. So here's our basic user table. And okay, so that's the setup. So let's go to the code. Okay, so how are we going to do authentication? So let's review an older example of the code in basic authentication. So in Java, if you were to authenticate a request, where can you do it? Now there are a few places that you can try to authenticate requests. For example, in this weather API, you could try to authenticate at the resource level. Coming in here resource level, and every time the request comes in here, you can do a function to check whether this request is an authenticated request. So you can do it there, or Java offers you a simpler way, which is to create this thing called a filter. Now, a filter is almost like a bouncer who stands in front of the club and prevents people from, well, not of age to go into a place. So it's a single point of entry stopping all the traffic, and then it inspects that traffic to see, hey, do you have this authentication header in your request? If you have it, I'll let you go. Or you have it and I'll check in the database if it's valid, then I'll let you go in. If not, I'll just kick you out. So the authentication filter class will be a single point of entry for all the requests. So here is the logic of extracting the header plus comparing the database to see if it's correct or not. So now look at the basic authentication filter here. Okay. So the basic authentication filter in Java has quite a lot of things that use fair bit of libraries around. So you might get a bit confused with the libraries it's using, but you can just absorb it along the way and just use it as it is. Okay, so what it does is implements this container request filter class. So when it does the implementation, you can override the methods. Now by default, every server or every web service application you create will have its own container request filter, which basically does nothing. So it's just there, but it does nothing. And for you to override it, you just need to implement the class and override a few key methods. The key method you need to override is this, called the filter method. So the filter method is basically where every context, we call it context, or every request comes in. So the default container request doesn't do anything, it just pass through. So now you're going to override it, introduce some methods to check, extract the header information, authorization header information, compare the database, and then decide should you throw the person out with a 403 or 401. You will also notice that here there's a resource info. So how Java works is that when a request comes in, it will be able to tell you which class, which method is going to call, plus the data is sending over. So if let's say someone were to call, make a request to say, give me all stations, and it's supposed to come to this method here. At the point of this filter in the resource info, Java can tell you that it's going to go to this class called station.java, it's going to go to this method, get all stations. So Java has a way to figure out which method it will go to. So that's the part where you actually can extract some information. But this is also the part where you decide, among all my web services, in this case, weather application, I got station, I have weather, let's say, station, weather application, no, just station. So let's say I have just one class called station. Among all the methods here, which one do I need to be protected? Which one requires authentication? So maybe some methods are public. You don't need authentication to get data. But some methods need authentication. For example, updating a user favorite items. You want to make sure that it's the user himself or herself updating it, not anybody else. Getting menu items probably don't need, just flash out the data. So when you decide what needs or not, then you start introducing certain keywords. So look at the keywords here. So notice that here is station class, which is station web service. There's this keyword up here called permit all, and further down below probably none. So here, the different keywords here will allow you to do a few things. So if I go back to my menu, so let's say I'm going to start to introduce some kind of authentication for my category services here. Well, now I have two methods, get all and get one, just for the practice sake. So the annotation here is permit all. When type permit all, of course, it will tell you that you need to import class again. If you mouse over the permit all, three quick fixes. The first one, notice the name class it comes from, Java X annotation security. So Java provides you with annotation to mark methods that can be accessed by at a certain level. One is permit all, means anybody can access. You don't need any kind of permit, any kind of permissioning. Okay, let me include that, put that in. And I'll show you another one. This deny all basically means no one can go use this method. Okay, typically not something that you put there. Okay, and to able to separate different users to access roles. There's this annotation called roles allowed. So roles allowed basically means who are the type of users who can access this method. Now it allows you to provide the list of user roles. Okay, anything you like. There's no fixed standard on how you want to call them. You can put either one, like this one admin, or if you want to have multiple, you can put this. So this means I only allowing the admin role and the member role to call this get all method. So as many as you want, you can provide the list of roles here. So the roles here in your system may be another level of separation. So for example, some people sign up for your menu, maybe just members. And then you have an administrator who can change more things, then that would be an admin role. So somewhere in your database on the back end, you could be storing this level of separation for different users.
Sorry, one question.
Yes.
Deny all, I mean, permit all means that as long as you're authenticated, I permit you. Doesn't mean if you're not authenticated, you are not.
Okay. Let's see. Permit all. Specify that all security roles are allowed to invoke the specific methods.
Security roles. So as long as you have a role, you're permitted.
Yes.
Deny for all roles. That means
Yes.
if you are not authenticated, because you're not authenticated, you don't have a role.
You never roll. Correct.
So if you want to have allowed everyone, so you don't have only
Take out the thing. So you're gonna allow take out the annotation. And if you want to have anybody who has a role, then it's permit all. See you feel a deny all. Okay. So let's try something. Okay. Maybe now I'll do this. So permit all. So I'll do a permit all and get all categories. And then here I'll say let's try this one now. Okay. So we're gonna set up get all as to permit all and then get one deny all. Next thing I need to do after creating the annotation for the access levels, I will need to create this basic authentication filter class. So where will I locate it? Probably under menu API.app. So here I'll probably create a new class. Call it basic authentication. So I'm gonna copy a lot of stuff over from the basic authentication filter, which is one of what is the implements. Context needs to be there as well. Okay. And of course I need a filter method. This one also needs to have this provider. Okay. So this is the basic authentication class, authentication filter class. So I have a resource info, which is the context to allow me to access what method the request is going to call, and then the override, because this one needs to override the filter method. Okay, So within here, when I access request context, I can get a lot of information, including headers and other stuff. So this is the basic setup. Now, when you create a basic authentication filter, you need to also inform Java that you need to use this instead of the default. To modify this option, okay, go to the example. So in your web XML, somewhere there, okay, let's see, do I have this? No, I think may not. Yeah, no XML. Resource config. There's a register authentication class. Okay, so you have, if you recall, you have a menu API application. Okay. So in here, you need to actually register the basic authentication. And then before. So the basic authentication filter class. So if you have the class name. So when you register it here in the application, you know that you need to use this filter when every request comes through. So when a request comes through, you know a few things to do. In basic authentication, what happens is that we go to a request. So let's say I'm going to go get all categories. So in Postman, or rather your Android app. So similarly in Android app, when you call your web service, you need, let's say you're using basic authentication. Okay, in Postman it's simpler. They let you choose. Okay, so when you choose basic authentication from Postman under authorization tab, it will give you two options, two fields, the key, username, and password. So let's say the key and username is user. Okay. When you do this, you click on preview request, headers will be created. So what happens is here in the authorization header. So this is a header that will be sent regardless of a get, put, delete, or post request. So it has two set of values: a basic space followed by the encoded username password. The encoded username password here that Postman does, that the Postman method of doing is very simple. Let me go to base64 decode. So they're using base64 to encode the username password. So if you go to the website to decode the username password, this thing, you see here, right? Decode it. Hmm? Yeah, still loading. It's slow, very slow. Yeah, okay. So see, this is the username password. So this is the encoded string. This is the decoded. Okay, so Postman doesn't do any strong encryption. It just do a basic C4 encode. So you have your username followed by the colon and then the password. So this colon here is a delimiter. Yeah. Okay, so your choice of encoding the password from an Android app, up to you entirely. You can take username, password, but you need to have a delimiter in between so that on your receiving end, you know when you separate out, you know that that's the username, that's password. Whether or not you want to use a colon, type character, a comma, as long as something that the user will not key in as their username password, you should use it. Whether you want to make it as complicated by really encrypting it, also up to you. So basically, 4 here is very weak. Anyone can take the thing and then decode. So this decision of how you encrypt it has to be done in your Android app. Okay, and if you know that you're gonna do a certain way of encrypting your Android app, you need to have a certain way of decrypting the same thing in your web application. Okay, so it's like a mirror. So when a request comes in, you will hit this thing called filter. So a couple of things we need to do is to first, notice the Postman will actually send it in this header called authorization. So, and all the authorization we are doing mostly will fall under the request header key authorization and then the actual value here. You can change a lot of this. In fact, but does it need to start with basic? It's up to you. You can change everything here that you want to. As long as your receiving end can extract the value, that's fine. So let's take it as basic. How is it going to be done? So authorization basic followed by the value. So first step in the filter is to extract the request header with the key that's equal to authorization. So we just write a pseudo code for the first step. Second step, after extracting the value, decode value, right? And get username and password. So you extract it, you decode it. Now you have username and password. Next is to check with database for matching user record. So if match, just continue. What you're looking for here if it's not match, else not match, return 403 or 401. So there are two types of requests in return back, which is request forbidden and unauthenticated. So one means that you provided a username password but they're wrong. Another is to say that you've not provided any username password at all, which is required. Okay, so look at the example code here. Okay, so there are a couple of things to do within all the steps. So notice in the example here there has a authorization property. So the property actually tells us which request header value I'm looking for. The scheme here tells me what type of authentication is using, basic or something else. So like I said, this can be changed on your side too. But let's say assuming we're going to follow the same thing. So I have two final strings here. Okay. So we're going to look for authorization, the request header that says authorization, and we're going to look for within the authorization the value beginning with the word basic. So the first thing is to do this, extract the request header with a key equal authorization. So when we do that, okay, you also need to check also. Sorry, before this, you check. So you need to check the method requested has security annotations. Okay. So when the request comes in, you know it's going to call a certain method. Now, if the method doesn't have any security annotation, you don't need to check anything. Now, if the method has security annotation, which either can be a permit or rows allowed, deny all, then depending on the situation, you do something. So you need to get the security annotation first. Now, there's resource info. Okay, so this here basically returns me the resource info method. Resource info comes from this context. Okay, and with get resource method tells you basically the method that is going to call in your resources. So you will check if method is annotation present. So there's a few useful methods here. So in an annotation present, whether tells me whether certain annotation is there. So I'm gonna check for three things, or maybe two first now. So let's say if it's a deny all. Okay, so if this annotation is present, deny all is the correct way of doing it, or deny all dot class dot string. Okay, so expect the class. So if the method is a deny all, so we're gonna throw out, right? Else, I'm gonna check again. Is the annotation present for permit or? Then here, if it's a permit or, I'll check if authorization headers exist. The last one I will check will be rows allowed. Okay. So if the rows allowed, I need to extract the rows and later compare with database somewhere that this user has a certain row that matches this, then I allow it. Else it will throw it out. So how do you deny someone immediately in the deny all here? So there's this parameter called request context. The request context comes with a method called abort. When you abort, you literally cut out the request and returns to the sender a certain message or status. So it happens to be this case, I'll say request context abort with a response status. So when you abort with is a return a response status. This part is very similar to how your resources return the data when the request hits it. In this case, you will say forbidden, okay, regardless of whether you have any security header or such. This method is not for you to use, and in there you can actually return a different message, just block for all users, and then do a return. So this will exit this entire method completely. So this is the abort. Now, if you do have a permit all, then you need to check if certain authorization headers exist. So how do we get the headers? Okay, so request context is also the same place where we get the headers of the user. Let's see, this gives me the request header of this. Okay. The request context.get headers gives you a multi-value map, which is like a dictionary. And then I need to take out the authorization header. So headers is a multi-value map. You do a get, and then you fill in the authorization property, which is this value. So if your header has this key value, then you will get the value under this key called authorization. However, if the person doesn't have a key, it means there's no authorization property. So you need to check if authorization is empty. You throw it out. Okay. So in this case, if it's empty, then I can repeat the abort here. So it will be forbidden or unauthorized. Okay. Now if it's not empty, then I'll continue. So if it's not empty, then I need to extract the username password and then check. So how do you get the encoded username password from here? So let's see, this is the base64 tokenized password. So this whole block here. Okay, so since authorization is a string value, which is a list of strings, so if you have one value, right, so get 0 will be first item. Replace the authentication scheme, which is this basic word plus a space with an empty string. Then you will get the encoded username password. And because we know that it's in the format of separated by a colon, and we know it's base64, the first step is to decode it with the base64 method, and then tokenize it with the colon as a delimiter. Then you get a username and password. So here to compare with DB. So far? Yeah. Okay. You can copy it or sure. Yeah, quite a lot of key. because there's a lot of checking and a lot of different scenarios. Yeah, all this work just to get the existing password. Okay, while you're coughing, I go to the toilet. Okay, any questions so far while copying? Okay, scroll down. Scroll down. Oh, okay. So far, do you understand what's going on? I'm only extracting the username password. Nothing. And comparing the row, there's still a bit more because we handle the deny all when we handle the permit all. So the next part is to handle the rows allowed. For rows allowed, it's similar to permit all, except there's one more step comparing the actual row with the user. So when you come to that part, you can actually look at optimizing your code a bit so that you don't have so much repeated steps. So after this, I will go straight to the database part of extracting the user from the user table. Then I'll go to then we test a bit, then we go to the rows allowed. Because rows allowed, you need to modify a table already.
to store in the database side, right? This user and this user.
This one is a basic authentication first.
Oh, each time every time go up.
Yes, basic authentication. So just now when I asked the difference between basic and OAuth, right? It's basic you need to bring the key with you all the time. But OAuth, if someone give you some kind of ticket, it just
Just keep it on.
not the actual key lah. Yeah. So the danger in basic auth is you're always constantly sending your email password lah, very important password through the network. Well, OAuth reduce all the exposure of password in the network. So if someone do pick up a packet, the chance they will pick up is when you authenticate at that point. Yeah, not every time you send a request.
So is it the correct understanding that let's say if you declare basic authentication, then are they looking the system automatically look for the basic authentication class, or do you need to configure somewhere?
Okay, so when I created this class, there's one more step that I did outside, which is in the menu API application Java. So after you create this class, Java won't know that this exists yet, or they don't know what to do with this. So in order to tell Java that I need to use this instead of their default, sorry, special here. You need to call a register. Yeah. So after you created a class, especially notice that we also have register Jackson, register multi-part feature. So certain features you want Java to know that you're using your implementation is not their default, then you register it here. But of course, if you create another one called OAuth, right, or custom, then you need to make sure you register only one of it, because both are the same, implementing the same this container request filter. You can only have one of it. Okay. So if you finish copying that, okay, so here we have done until get the username, get the password token, tokenized already, we have a username password. So this is to compare a DB.
No issue, right? In case the scenario require some user they might use basic authentication, some user they might use
Generally standardized for all. You generally standard. You don't. If you, I not tried. I have tried running both. Okay, so if I turn on both at the same time, register, I not tried it. Either I'll get an exception from Java complaining that there's two container request filter classes implementation no which to use, or we just take the latest one that I register, and then the last one. But in normal systems, if you do break the authentication to different ways, right, that means the system that does it is a separate system from the others. So let's say my Active Directory, right, is doing authentication by Active Directory. Then for some reason, I have some funny system that do username password, right, and then key username password. That means that system and your AD are actually separated, cut apart. Okay, so DB, shall I move on to the database? Or wait a while? Okay. A lot of times. Okay, so to move on database, so those who weren't here last week, today you will get your first taste of database. Okay, should recall this one again. Okay, database. Other than what I described database as a spreadsheet, something similar to a spreadsheet or table. Okay, so just now you saw some statements that create table and create databases, right? Those we call data definition languages. It also allows you to alter, change properties of a table, columns, and such. But those are usually the first time when you set up everything. Most of the time, 99% of the time, you're using data manipulation, which is your select, insert, update, delete. So it sounds a bit like your get, post, put, delete. Okay. So I'm gonna jump straight into that. Now in Java, so here I have an example of a category store, which is a class that has all the SQL to get categories. Now before I created this, I have created a thing called data access Java. So in order to connect the database, you need to first obtain a connection. So in Java, before obtaining a connection, you need to load this thing called a driver manager. So the driver manager basically understands that, needs to know what kind of database are you getting data from. Is it an MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, or something else? Okay. And then finally, it needs a username password to access the DB. Most of the time when you provide the application access, you do not give it root access. So it's bad practice to give full access. You should create another user with limited rights to access the database for the application. So that in any case someone do find out about application database access rights, the damage is limited. Okay. So the first thing that happens in the database for Java to MySQL is here to get connection from this class called driver manager. First class, remember, driver manager. Driver manager has only one important method that you use is to get a connection. And getting connection requires three things: connection string, username, and password. Now the connection string is on top here, which is hard coded. Not the best idea, not the good idea to hard code, but always to store as some kind of web config. Now in Java, when you deploy Java applications to certain servers, they may also give you option to override this connection string in the admin panel. Okay. For now, for the lesson, you'll just be using a hard-coded one first. So in the connection string, you notice that it's separated a few parts. JDBC, MySQL. So JDBC basically is the Java database connection class, the mother of all classes here to access the database. So within there, it needs to know that you're using MySQL. Prior to this, you will have installed MySQL into your system, so it has the jar file somewhere. This thing is this :// which looks like your HTTP protocol. And the next available information in the connection string is your location of the server. Now, if you have a machine, the database of the same location, same physical location as the application, then it's usually called localhost or 127.0.0.1, followed by the port number. So if you have configured your database, normally it should be 3306. Take note that you cannot have multiple databases sharing the same port, same as web servers. So this can only be unique to one database running. Followed by that will be the name of the database you want to access in your MySQL. In this case, we have name of database menu API, so you use that. Anything after that part with the question mark are all options. So options means there are certain options, connection options you may use in MySQL. In this case, you'll notice I have this thing called use SSL equal false. By default now, for every single MySQL installation set up, if you omit this option, you won't assume that you must have SSL connection to a database. Now that is very important if your database is in another server, your application is another server. So in order to be, for security, they usually require you to have SSL connections.
How we can check this connection string is a correct?
How to check?
Yes.
A bit hard.
Yes. I think my one, I is not connected.
You cannot connect.
My SQL already running.
SQL running.
Just copy this one. Except you try to get localhost, try IP address. I27.0.0.1.
Okay, so if you cannot connect, okay, so first thing, how do you find out this URL string, right? Not straightforward. Number one, whatever you install on your computer, especially Glassfish and all that, they don't necessarily tell you your connection strings. Depending on certain servers, but there is a general format to follow. So if you don't know the actual connection string from your server, the format to follow is the first part, JDBC MySQL. Then the one that might change is this localhost or IP address. Port number 3306 must be the same.
Port number is
correct.
But I also using the SQL as but
okay, so can you connect to MySQL through the workbench? Through this workbench?
Yeah,
can connect, right? So go to localhost here. Right? So this works. Okay. Next thing is, do you have, so in the connection string, we're looking for the schema called menu API. So you need to have the database menu API created. Have also, right? You're connecting via which user?
Username password.
Correct, username password. But still can't connect. Okay, what's the error message you encounter?
For the postman, you return that the category just a black out.
Oh, carry blank.
Yeah, category.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I have to check this with you. Okay, you got menu API, correct? You got categories table?
This one category have the value inside. The
Have
one I got from the postman.
Nothing.
Just display as a category.
Yeah. So when you call, okay, let me take away my authentication.
Empty category and then just a bracket.
Category and then bracket. Oh, okay. So when you return, right, that means return this category empty.
Yeah.
Here return empty.
Yes. Look like it.
Okay, so you go to category. Your code.
So use a copy from.
Download the one downloaded.
Yeah, download that one.
Okay, so go to the category.
Category.
Okay. So download one means it also get all doesn't work. Okay, go to console. You find any errors there? Okay, so if you cannot get anything, so where the error could be happening is in your store get all. So let's say store get all returns you an empty array. Then to debug, you go to category store. Here, if this part, this part works right, then there shouldn't be exception. So let's see, we can try to console.write. I think so. System out. Print line X. So if you want to find out if there's an error happening within here, under the exception, you can do a system.out.println. It should appear under the console when you run it. Yeah. So if there was an unsuccessful attempt to return the data, right, you will have empty categories. That's why that will have an empty array. So something might happen here, right? So you need to capture the error from here and find out what's wrong.
This one I already see already, and then I need to return.
Yes, we need to publish.
This one will publish.
Yes. Still publish. Oh, still initializing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me go back to basic application. So you check the error message first, then see what. Okay. So on compare DB, okay. So I'm gonna use the same way that I get the category store for user. So I'm gonna create a class called user store. The user store will allow me to retrieve users, maybe update and create users as well. So how does this work? Data access returns me the connection from driver manager. So in the store class, I will have a way to get the connection from data access, and then within here I try to create a statement and execute it. So step by step. So there are a few very important classes you need to know when you do with Java database. Important because I also ask you in the exam test. Okay, so user store, I will need as a standard is the method. So the first method I will have is just do a public void first. Right? So get user, right? Let's get user by username, password. So I'm going to have a method that will require username and password, and it will give me users and match this. Okay. Of course, when I want to return it, I want to return nicely as a user object, not as a void. So under models, I will create a user class as well. call this user model. The user model will be following very closely to the way I created the database. So there'll be a username, of course there'll be a password, and created date. This one I'll use SQL data. Okay. So this is a user model in user store. So user store will use their user model. So let me get it out. Okay. So I'm going to return this here. So only expecting one user model to be returned. So set up the object, return it here. Initialize to null first. Okay. So here is going to be my DB. So to actually call the database, you need to get connection first. So first thing is to create a connection variable. Where we get the connection from? So from the data access Java, there is a method called get connection. Let me change this to this is SQL connection, data access, get connection. So once I obtain the connection, Java will always tell you to encapsulate all your SQL workings within a try catch. Now if there's something wrong, then I'll grab the message and print out the system. So within the try catch, after get connection, the next object I'll need to create will be a statement. Okay, so statement class basically allows you to create some kind of a SQL statement and then run it. So where you create statement from is from the connection object. So in here, statement. So the class called statement. So it goes to connection, create statement. Okay. So here, complaining again. So make sure you choose to import java.sql, not other classes. So statement here, once you have a statement object for connection, I can then execute the query. So execute query allows me to input the actual SQL statement I want to key in. So I will show you a few versions of how SQL statements here are done. So most of the time you have this example, right? So select star from user means I want to choose everything from user table. Then in this case, I have a condition, username and password. Okay, so I'll show you the negative example. What do some people do? So in the select SQL statement, we have a where condition. Username is equal to, and then I do this. And password is equal to. Okay, so this is a very negative example of how to pass parameters into your SQL. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm constructing the SQL statements using string literals and just having a plus. What's the danger with this SQL statement? Okay, the danger of this SQL statement is typical of SQL injection attacks. So if someone were to call a postman and send me the object or the post form data, instead of giving me username and password, they could be putting in something else. Because the database will just run whatever you give it, right? Okay, so if someone's been malicious, someone will replace the username with a single quote, a semicolon to end the first statement, and then whatever the person likes to key in, and then probably followed by a comment out the next line of statement. Then if you happen that your application using a root user, that means the person can do things like create a file that will create a shell script in your app server, then they can backdoor in. So this is the danger of constructing SQL statement with a plus string literals. So what is a better way? Shelf this. Okay, the better way is this thing called a prepared statement. Prepared statement basically is something like a statement. Starting is different. So the prepared statement has a few interesting features. Okay, so when you create a prepared statement, sorry, not con, not create statement, I prepare a statement. So connection prepare statement allows me to key in SQL, but I have something different. So I still select star from user, where here's the difference is I'm using wildcards. Okay, so notice I have a question mark in my prepared statement, my SQL now. First question mark going to user, second question mark going to password. The question mark acts as wildcards or placeholder for me to later put in the actual value. Why is this more secure than the string literal version? So what happens is that SQL will actually, the library will process a statement when you put in a wildcard and then sanitize the actual input. So if you attempt to put in any other commands, it will likely escape off as a text and then resulting in SQL that don't give you a result. So once you created a prepared statement, how do I substitute the values at the first and second position? So here I can do a thing called set value, set string. And set string allows me to do it two ways. One is to set by the number parameter index, starting from 0. If it's say that 0 here. So first index is the value username, put it here. Then second value is the password. Index would be 1, and pass in the password. So when I tell prepared statement set the string at 0 to be username, the one at this value, it will prepare the actual SQL statement, make sure that it's sanitized. So once I have this, I can then do a execute query. On execute query, you type out IntelliSense will tell you that, oh, it returns you this thing called result set. Okay, this is the driver manager connection prepare statement result set. Fourth very important class to know. So result set is a iterable object. Okay, this is not an array, it's not a dictionary, but basically what it does is it allows you to traverse in the individual rows and return. So if your query you return more than one row, it will give you a pointer to go to next and next and next. Now the pointer acts as a validator to find out if there's any record now in the next set. So when the pointer finally tells you none or false, then you know that you've reached the end of records. So between here to returning the data, you need to hydrate your object by initializing an instance, setting the properties, then you return it out. So you normally don't take the result set out of this method here and then pass it all the way to the front end or the web service to do something. You leave it in here and you close it. So once I get the result set, because here I'm only expecting to have one result. So I will just do a result on next. The next method here tells me if there's a record. Now if there's no record, then I'll get an exception and then I'll print out in the console. But however, if there's a next record, I want to create a new instance of a user model and then set it according to the result. Now here, to get the data for each return column, instead of using a set like the parameter prepared statement, I'll use a get. Now when I do a get, I can do it two ways, either by column index or by the name of the column. Column index is usually a bit dangerous because sometimes you never know if the database actually returns you in the order that you created the table in. Most of the time it should be. So if I go by column index, I should expect username to be the first column, password followed by created date. But if you want to be really sure, you can also do a get string using the column label. Okay. It's a bit more typing or comment the numbers, but you can be sure that it won't be wrong. So let's say one day someone decided to do an auto table and change the column ordering somehow, right? Yeah, and then don't tell you, then you need to update the application. So using labels is tend to be safer. So here I will get password, username, and the date type. Okay. So once this is done, if all is successful, I should get back a user with the matching username password. So this is the one method I need. Now going back to my basic authentication, compare with DB. Okay, so here I need to have a user store. Create an instance of this guy. Okay, my username password, pass the username and password in, and expecting a user model. And if just so happen the user is, let's say, so the user is now nobody there, okay, doesn't match. What do I do? Throw the person out, right? So in this case, if user is now, then I will return this unauthorized. However, if the user exists and is valid, then I will just let it fall through. Nothing, don't do anything. Okay, so make sure I import the model correctly. So in general, the request filter class works like this. If nothing happens, I think so, nothing happens, you should just pass through completely, yeah, without even a return. Okay. So basic authentication works, the filter works this way. If you return in between the code somewhere, right, that means something went wrong. So if you do a return, it will never get to the actual method. But if you don't do anything, it will flow down to the actual method. So the rule is that if you're going to kick the person out, then yeah, do a return. And then follow, before that, abort a response. Right? And the user is valid and everything works, don't do anything, it will just pass through. So far, this is this. Okay, so let's test. Okay, so what have I done? My category Java is a permit all, while this guy is a deny all. Okay, so let's try. So I'm gonna do get categories. Let's say no authorization. Okay. Actually, I got an error instead. No pointer exception. Then famous Java error. Null pointer exception somewhere. Okay. Best of all, it doesn't tell me where. Logical error somewhere. Okay, let's go to. Okay. So what have I changed? I added this thing. If you're not sure where the error is, you can always do debug. Okay. Do a breakpoint somewhere. Okay, so I'm gonna breakpoint here. Okay, so I set a breakpoint here at the method. Then I'm gonna do a step over and see where the error comes from. So you can see as I do a step over, you can see the values coming out from the top here. Method, headers. So what method is this gonna call? Get all method. Okay. So check this one is empty, and You see the frozen there. Let's try that again. Okay, headers. So headers, what does it have? Size 6. Authorization now. Oh, okay. Here's my now pointer exception. Because there was no authorization property in the request, authorization instead is empty is now. Wait, wrong there. Okay. You didn't put all the conditions. Okay. And yeah, pick up. Okay. So let me go back to the code. Okay. So now it works. So what happened? Since there was no authorization property, it means no header for authorization was sent over, right? So you don't send a header, what happens is when I get authorization property based on this key, authorization will be null. So should check whether it's null or it's empty, then I throw it out. So now I'm gonna do authorization, have a basic of pre request. So I got this value here, do a send. Okay. So I step through and see what happens. Okay. So now that I've value in the header, now when I get to authorization, there's a linked list, there's values. Okay. And therefore it skips that part and I try to get the encoder username and password. So this is the encoded username and password, dxn something, same as, oh, got stuck into the thing. Okay, for some reason I didn't see there. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, so this is an extracted user password, which is correct. Now if I let it flow through, okay, I get attempt to connect to the database. What happens is because the user doesn't exist? Yeah. Oh, there's username and password, but there are no users here, right? So that's why the user result is null. Yeah. Of course, here I think wrong message. It's not no authentication credential provided. Okay, so there's a bit of bad thing I'm doing here by describing the error. Okay. Okay, so I'm describing it for my own sake to know what's going on. But actually, when you do actual web application, you should try to disclose as little information about any error as possible. Yes. No, 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 yeah. So that if someone tries to brute force, they will know that, oh, you don't let them know they're getting warmer at all. They just get cold. Okay, here I'm just telling myself, oh, this is not valid. That was no credential. Okay, okay, so in this case, let me fast forward, take out the breakpoint. So there are no users that match the username and password, very simply because our table is empty. So you want to key in now, user, password, and then put in a date. Today is 1008. What time? 20:29. Okay. Okay. So now it's in a send, and what happened? Oh, didn't execute. Must apply. Yes, apply. Okay. No wonder here not valid. Oh, still not valid. User password.
No, because you didn't give any authentication, right? You have authentication.
Uh, yeah. Show password. Yes, I said basic.
Okay.
Okay, so I selected basic. Username, password, right? Database is user, password, right? Hmm? So anything? Nothing. Get username, password. This return now. Okay. Okay. So let's try to check here. Set a debug point here. Let's see what do we get. Since we got data in the database, right? Okay. Let me go to next line. Wait. User is still now. Yeah, user is still now. Okay, so something wrong. Something happened.
That means it's not creating a model.
That means no, the model is now means inside here, which is user store. It returned this. It didn't create. So it didn't create this. So what happened? Can anybody spot the mistake? Okay, I'm gonna put the code here. Then I'm gonna put the database here. Okay, so this is the database. Result set is iterable. So you can only call .next. You cannot convert it to array. Or you cannot. Okay, so when you first get a result set, the pointer will point to nowhere first. Then we call .next, we will try to yeah. So when you say .next, you will try to point the first available record in result set. So that's why I will do a .next first to see if there's data. If there's data, then that means I pointed to the first data, then I can get data. Okay, so look at this two screen. Tell me what's wrong. Can you spot it? Name of what? Yeah, US. So how come I didn't get any message here? Let's see. Strange. I should have got a system dot somewhere out here, right? Hmm? Hmm. No, the SSL certificate doesn't matter. How come never print out? Never mind. Okay. What was your error just now? You managed to see any error? Yeah, just now the categories. Still cannot. Still empty lah. Nothing in console. here my user is still now? Still now. I publish already, right? Okay. Still now. Okay. So maybe I should go and do the debugging inside here. Date time. That's okay. If I don't pass it. Okay, this part is okay. Oh, exception ready. Yeah, should be. Okay, but anyway, I did see the message here. So EX here. Parameter index or range. 0 less than 1. Okay. Okay, what's wrong with the parameter? First parameter is 1, second is 2. Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay, you're supposed to SQL answer. Okay. Yep. Okay, now it works. Okay. So what do we know about the question mark parameter? Okay, start from 1, not 0. So sometimes when you look at indexes, it can be a bit confusing when if it's an integer or search by integer date time. Okay, let's say your date time. Okay, they have a few variables. Set has integer, long, string. They I think have a date. Okay, but date can be a bit tricky. You need to create a date object. It must be a SQL date object. Yeah, then it will work. Okay, so this is the user. So the other method that we have for category that has a different thing, deny all. Okay, so if you call deny all, they call the deny all, get all one category, what will happen? So if you don't call with any, so deny all, if I don't provide any security headers, it will still block me. So even if I do provide a security header, okay, it will still block me. Okay, so deny all is absolutely deny everything lah. Okay. If I don't put anything there, okay, let's save it. So if a method doesn't have a security annotation, doesn't mean that it will pass through logic. Okay, so it does pass through without security annotation. Okay, but bear in mind that a lot of the logic of whether you decide it will pass through or not is determined by what you do inside the basic authentication Java. So if you do check that, in this case I check deny all, I throw out a person, permit all, I must compare the authorization, roles allowed, then I will check whether the roles match. That means here I allow a situation where if there's no security annotation, I assume anyone can access it. Okay, so that's one level. If there is an annotation, it must be a user that's existing, or otherwise must match the roles. So that's two and second level and third level. Okay, so this is basic authentication, the main gist of it. Now, in order to check the roles allowed, That will require two things. First of all, to modify the table here to include a column called row. So let's assume a user cannot be one row, not multiple rows. So one row. If you want to have multiple rows, then you probably have a row table and then the user to row mapping. Okay, so maybe you don't try to complicate for now. Any questions so far? Codes, yes.
There's so many pages.
Okay, you want issue? Oh, so you cannot get categories.
I caught this man.
Yes.
Let's keep on this.
Okay, so go to code. You need to implement the authorization.
No, not yet. You upload for us and then we import.
The import.
Just now I already got in there.
Data user data access. Okay. Here, right? Okay, you find a way to print out the data. You do a break debugger first.
Debugger, yeah.
Go to debug.
Oh, so just now
You start debug.
oh, debug.
Then you put a breakpoint.
Okay.
So when it's ready, right? So when the server is ready, you call the endpoint. They will trap here. Then you press F6 to step through. So if you hit the error, you will go straight to the exception and you can take a look at the error message.
No, restarting the.
Yeah, restarting. So you have to pause it.
No more functionality.
Oh, you got power?
Next week.
You need this
different.
all different. Okay. Pause it. Okay, so you debug, then you press F6, step one line, then if it's an error, you go to SQL and check that. Oh yeah, you leave for a few weeks. Okay, 1 week. Yeah, technically lah. This I can rent. There's one more for database. Just continue. Any practice. So many errors.
So many errors. No, because when you running the hello database, and then you better import this one, the menu API. But this one have a lot of error. you face also problem.
I thought just the basic.
Download the latest menu API. Yeah,
This one you troubleshoot and it I tried already. Because this one you need to go and then the dependency, a lot of things.
The dependency.
Better use the correct one, menu API.
So usually you just need for the database, you just need this dependency is the primary one.
Yeah, the main one.
And then we just get on data and store the structures.
Structure will be depending how you want to get out. If you create a normal plain object, then you can just put the data in. Yeah.
The properties.
Yeah.
I have the same error.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, also the same error.
Yes.
So it's category can get.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to do debug mode. So just now what we're doing is you go to restart debug. Okay. Yeah. Then the place you want to find out whether there's an error is there an SQL exception here? So you need to create a breakpoint. Okay, once it's started already, so when you call the endpoint, you will trap the execution here. Then you step one line by one line. So the moment you hit the error, you can really see what error the exception message is. So we're going to restart first. Okay, so now it's started already. So when you call this, so now it goes to debug mode. So the view will change. So in debug mode, the view change. This is the step through. This is the variable. So now you freeze the execution here. So on the top, there's this few buttons which is a step over. Can't get one not moving. Wait, follow. So there's a step over. Okay, there's a resume. Resume means you continue execution, pause, suspend. This is to complete terminate the thing to start server. So step into is to go into a function, a method. Normally you want to stay in the same scope, you still step over. Then if you enter a function, you want to exit right, then you do a step return, and you come out. So wait for the yeah, I don't know, cannot see, cannot click. It's still loading. Fail to create a path. Cool, but this Eclipse error. Eclipse error.
Eclipse error.
Yeah. This is.
So it means some library.
Can we go back to the previous view? Right? Is this button? Ah, so many errors. Yeah, this error is it? What's this? Keep on running. Okay. Try again now. See whether it. Error. Can't debug. Okay, you need to. What's wrong? This is not your program's problem, it's Eclipse problem. Try to close and relaunch it. There's something wrong with Eclipse.
I close and restart.
Eclipse, yeah.
I restart.
Huh?
I try again.
Oh.
I reset the machine.
Restart the machine. Okay. Just the same one. Same the categories return nothing. Yes. Oh, user store. Can we move to user store? Oh, the top right corner. So using password is correct. Is it this one? Oh, actually the same. Can use the locals. Locals should be okay. It needs this means or maybe if you put the IP address one two seven but there is running. This is a workbench. This is not this is shell. This is shell. The workbench also yes. Office also I tried. I cannot find. I installed it. Yeah, just no, I know.
Because if we write and we miss out what is because we are making yeah, that's good.
Time zone.
Server HQL's time zone configuration. But then this machine is different, yes. What's your time zone on the machine? Malaysia or Singapore? Malaysia, right? Correct.
I'm gonna look through the basic authentication. Good.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I tried a basic one just to get something like that. So I can see in console how people try this today. Just see.
I'll look at it.
Yeah, so it's actually understand through the practice.
Okay. Okay, so when you understand right now, so you need to write the sample code. Right? Look, that's not the code. Quite a lot for the libraries and all those things. I think is it your technical problems? Yeah, normally I'm used to it. Your thanks only say you require maybe from the service. You can do a command line. Service can
Felix, are you still copying?
Sorry.
Are you still typing?
No, I'm okay with it.
Okay, so I need to find out. So MISQL time. Okay, some of you may be encountering an SQL time zone error. Ah, yes. Sorry. Forgot. Okay. Sorry. Interruption. Important interruption. So the on the week of 29, 28th of January this week. So there's supposed to be lesson 29, right? Tuesday. Okay. So I am not in Singapore. Yeah. Okay. So I'll put out an announcement also. So I'm proposing the makeup lesson to be done next week on the 14th instead. So next week, that means next week there's two, 14 and then 15. They cover, yeah, 2 days. So we cover for the 29th that day. So that means that week there's no. You don't you know I'm building the sample code already. Okay. So okay, the version here I'm gonna export and upload to the upload up to the Polymore. Okay, so incrementally every week as you do more, right, you can use this sample code to add on stuff. Okay. Uh, so now we have the basic authentication and database. Try to do a bit of things on your own by copying, pasting some code and changing some things like creating a new table and see how it works, right? Then the next few weeks is just really getting your assignment to right along the way. Okay. Because frankly I don't expect all of you to write everything from scratch for all this stuff. So don't waste time as I upload now. Okay, so for today's code, please go to topic 8 under API authentication security. The last link means menu API basic auth and users table. Okay, so download this to run the user table to run the authentication. Let me export the user table out. Okay, the SQL to create a table is also here, as well as SQL to insert the user and pass user record inside here. So you need to copy this into your MySQL workbench and run these two scripts, this and this one. Okay. So those who have problem with the SQL now, which is the time zone issue, right? Okay. I didn't have the SQL issue with time zone, for sure. So it's a bit new located. Let's see. So what's my time zone, right? Okay, let me find out what's my time zone. This is Tin. You try to run this query select at time zone in your SQL browser, see what's the value here. Same, also system.
Is it correct? It's nothing something wrong.
Oh, this one should be user.
Huh?
Don't have user, user, the user.
Then how to just call
Categories.
just call
Oh, you're trying to call getting categories only, right?
oh that's the two.
Yeah, there's only two. One is to
It's still the
just
same,
call
just
this.
then the authentication just go through.
Okay, so based on the example just now, for categories has permit all. So you must provide some authentication to go through. The second one, this one is a deny all. Then later I change it to none. So if you don't put any authentication, you just pass through.
Okay, change
Yeah.
okay.
So right now for the category, the second endpoint, right, I took out the deny all. So when you take it out, it means it doesn't check anything, it just go through. But if you put deny all, regardless of what you put, right, you will always reject. Try this one. For those having a time zone, right? In your connection string, add this parameter. So data access. So those with the time zone error, you might want to append one more parameter called use legacy date time code equal to true after at the end of it. So after use SL equal false, put n then followed by this parameter. See if this one works or not.
Like connection okay.
Category 2 no yet.
Oh, you also don't know. So
There's
no,
no data inside.
Oh,
so far no one finished it.
no. How come?
Huh?
Can you get connection?
Connection look okay. Oh, connection never give me any error.
No.
No error. Only the triple statement. This statement.
Oh, because they meant.
This statement. Category list, right?
Yes.
Here it starts from, let's say, statement dot this connection dot pre statement. It give
Yes.
error.
Oh, press statement give error.
So
So
until
what's the
the
error?
connection get connection, right?
Yeah.
It return.
Return.
It's
So what's the
until-
error? So what's the error?
Error.
You catch the ex here, the breakpoint.
Error is like say null pointer error.
No, you show him the debug.
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 You breakpoint here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you run debug mode.
Run and debug.
So right click plus
Just
fish.
right.
Then select restart debug.
Cannot.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
Did it work?
No, not yet.
Oh no, yeah. Oh.
Give it ready. Maybe.
No battery already.
Oh, no battery already. Okay.
No, my battery is 8 hours, so should be okay. So okay, then restart him.
Okay.
No, just starting. Just wait for. Sometimes taking time.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Okay,
days.
call.
Then set.
Yeah. Then you will hit the break. Okay, go there. Yes. Okay. So now right, you F6. Okay, F6. See what's the value of command. Okay. Oh, it's step into one. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, it's correct.
That's
Correct. Over. So. Okay, correct.
so
We got the connection.
Oh, connection. Okay.
We
Wait.
return connection.
Wait. Start over.
Still working.
Start over.
You will see here connection.
Timestamp. Is it? State program timestamp?
Timestamp.
I don't know.
Yeah. Resume.
Nothing else.
Bukan mak.
Resume.
Response. Okay, let me change your breakpoint. So your breakpoint was at. So breakpoint is here, right?
Yeah.
So inside data access. your breakpoint. I thought I saw the return now the connection.
Oh, return now. Connection is return now.
Oh, no connection.
No connection.
No connection.
This one is
Shut here. I think something happened here.
có cái nào gì này không chịu tụi mình ham
Mm.
a new error, but does it need to use SQL?
Better. How we go there and nothing come.
We need to republish again.
Money debug mode is you will send your
Whatever we want to change, we can change on the spot and then we can resume back.
yeah.
So like no connection with the database.
Yeah, like no connection database. But if no connection you have error.
So no error.
Ah, have must capture SQL.
No capture already?
No,
No driver file.
No driver file.
Where's the driver?
Oh.
Okay. I don't use GDBC. I use MySQL.
You use them?
MySQL.
Azure.
MySQL. Call it that. I haven't installed the GDBC.
Oh,
okay,
you need to
I know,
use
okay.
GDBC connector. The J lah, connector J, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you use connector J.
What is happening is the login user ID password GDBC right in the data itself. So that means every page, every time it sends needs to send user ID.
Yeah.
But if I want to change each time, you only need to log in once. Subsequently, I only need token
So you need a first endpoint for login. Then we should post username password in, you return your token. Then whether you store the token in database, then the subsequent you use the token the header and send across. So your authorization header, then maybe you put a token value there. Doesn't matter if you have a basic barrier, what doesn't matter. Just put token value there. Then when you receive in the filter, instead of basic authentication, right, you just cap the value and then compare the database. So different from the way we're doing here, where we compile username password every time.
Methodology is still the same.
It's the same.
Right, but do I need to change anything?
In the basic authentication class, instead of extracting the username password, right, you just need to extract the token, because you're going to simplify it by sending as authorization then followed by the token value. So here, instead of doing all this part, right, all this thing here, where I replace first, the moment I get this, you'll get a token ready. So skip all the way down to somewhere here. So you need to create a class to check the token table. Does the token exist? So if token equal null, then you throw back, else continue. So you need to have a token store to actually check the token compare. So if you're going to use the
string tokenizer,
okay.
I'm using string tokenizer here. The first time I will use it, then I say it's token, this token value. Can I?
Say the token value first time. Because here you're going to be receiving requests. So when you receive requests, you'll be getting a token from an outsider.
Oh, okay, okay. So the token is created.
Yeah, when you log in. So it means in your resources, here right, you need to create one more class that says users, maybe user resource. There's a main API method to do login. That's the part where we give back the user token.
Because using this method, that means you need to store the username and ID inside your account.
If you're using this method, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the moment
otherwise
you can't pass it back, right? You need to keep it in the storage in the Android too. So instead of storing username password, you can send the username password over, give it back token, then you store the token instead, right? Yeah, that's safer lah. Definitely safer. Okay.
Thank you. See you.
See you.
Error that I can't see anything.
Oh, can't see anything.
It's just show me back request.
Back request. Okay, so wait. So this is under headers. Oh, you send a body. Okay. None. Then send. Yeah. Okay. So now you get an error, return error. So you're following the today's one.
Yeah, right.
So you're trying to catch up with all the typing you done. Okay. So this one. Okay. Problem it didn't tell you exactly which line is happening. So that means it's somewhere. Okay. Now pointer is here. So just now I had a mistake. My mistake was correct. Okay. The problem is I don't know where the null pointer come from. Null pointer is actually console. No, so weird. Now the console don't show anything. Wait. No, sorry. Huh? Oh, it's different. Okay, it's old stuff. Clear this one. So if you too much time, I can clear it out. I'll try to call again. See whether pops are here again. Okay, so don't have. Okay, so now you figure out where the null pointer section come from. Earlier it was here that I made mistake. So let me see. So
Maybe is unable to get my the database.
Oh, you just downloaded this one, is it? Oh, okay. What changes you make?
Sorry?
What any changes you make after you downloaded?
No changes.
Okay. Let's see. So can we have table user? Okay. So user table is the default person. Okay, that's correct.
Because I accidentally add in the database don't have a password. So I really changed it.
Oh, to this one.
Yeah, that's right. So is it
Okay.
would that be
Shouldn't have, but just to make sure I'll do. So I'll set to debug mode. Then I'll set replay here. Find out whether this could be null or not. Well, it's hard to tell where the null pointer section come from. That doesn't really have to shape a line to see. So what we're doing is get categories, right? Which we hit this one. So this is all assuming it's fine. So when it does it, you need check to it all, which I'm afraid might have something to do with here. Because if you downloaded my version, the main difference is the database could be different in terms of login. So let me see this first. Oh, so it didn't hit. So definitely not here. So wherever error is hit, likely hit this part here. So I'm trying to try the user store because this part is crucial. Okay. So I'm trying to see which line has error. So now I'm gonna get connection, right?
Yep.
So assuming your connection okay. Oh, now. So that means when data access, oh, okay. So when you try to get a connection, it went to a null situation. You couldn't get connection. That means the error will be somewhere here. Okay, change this to, okay, change SQL error, save it. Then I'm going to drop a point here. Okay, so here is where the error is coming from. Because it's the same code that works on my site, so it means it's a database connection from maybe the password doesn't match. Okay, so here, so step over, connection, still null now. Connection through, get a connection through. No stable driver. Oh, okay, same problem, same as the other student. When you install, okay, you need to install this thing called the connector. To installer. Okay, there's this thing called the MySQL. Wow. Oh, this is a company laptop, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this connector J. You need to install that. Okay, so you need one connector. Once you can install connector, it will already. So go to Excel connectors. This is connector J for Java. Yeah, this guy. So ODBC is the Windows to Java to MSQL, the old one, Then the .NET is the .NET application. Yeah.
Because initially I thought it was either .NET or
Okay.
DBC, so I just installed this one.
If you were developing in ASP Classic, then it's ODBC. If you're developing in .NET, it'll be .NET. ODBC now is very hard, very rare lah. Unless you're using the old version Excel, then you can connect ODBC to the MySQL, then use the driver. So once you install that, should be okay. So, yeah, close it. Then you just restart. Can continue. So go back to the Eclipse. It's a resume button. Yeah. Okay, then you go and connect. You go to Postman call again. Then you go back there, just to make sure that you've got the stuff. So you click resume again. So here you click step over F6. Step over again. Still through the error. The true exception. Maybe you might need to restart the computer.
Or restart this Eclipse.
Or restart Eclipse or the Starfish server.
So from this.
Yeah. Okay, let me just run stop first. Because it may not have loaded the driver while it's running just now.
I think you need to restart.
Or restart the Eclipse. Because you just install driver, like installing software. Time at the extreme is restarting the whole Windows so that it knows it's there. Okay, try to make a call. Okay, hit the breakpoint. Yes. Okay. Step 72. Okay, then just step over. Step over again. Wait. Take a look at the value. We can expand that. Yeah, let's see. No stable driver.
Still.
No stable driver.